Have you ever been called cold just because you decided to walk away from people who never knew how to value you? How many times have you done your best, put your heart first, and still been treated like it was a small thing? The truth is that you didn't stay cold. You just got tired. He was tired of giving too much of himself, of loving intensely, of always being a presence, while the other was an absence. He was tired of begging for crumbs when all he wanted was reciprocity. There are people who point the finger and say that you have changed, but no one noticed how much you cried in silence, how much you broke yourself inside trying to keep others whole, how much you lost yourself trying to maintain relationships that were already hurting you. Being called cold is the price you pay for setting limits, for no longer accepting being used, ignored, or diminished. If you are here now, you know how difficult it is to feel everything, all the time, and still be judged for protecting yourself. And that's why this video is for you, to remind you that the problem was never loving too much. It was loving someone who didn't know how to care. You deserve to be loved the way you love, with truth, with presence, with respect. So stay with me until the end of this video, because we're going to talk about things that no one had the courage to tell you. The time has come to turn the key, to understand what is really happening inside you, and to regain your strength. And before we continue, leave it here in the comments. I'm not cold, I'm just tired. Let's see how many women will have the courage to recognize themselves in this sentence. And do you know why it's so important for you to hear this now? Because there comes a time when we need to stop blaming ourselves for no longer being the one who always said yes. You're not cold. You just learned to protect yourself. When we begin to understand that giving too much to those who don't reciprocate exhausts us, everything changes. And this is exactly the point at which many women reach. Exhausted, disappointed, with a hardened heart, but not because they stopped loving, but because they loved too much with no return. And if this message is already touching something inside, it's because you needed to hear it today. It's no coincidence that you got here. Nothing is by chance. And if you want to continue this healing process of reconnection with your strength and essence, leave your like here now. This helps this content reach other women who are also tired of being called cold when in fact, they are just exhausted from giving their all. And take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel, because here you will find many messages like this, which welcome you, strengthen you, and remind you of your value. Taking care of yourself is an act of love, and that's the first step. So sign up now and activate the bell. You don't deserve less than what life wants to offer you. You just need to stop giving yourself to those who don't know how to receive. And speaking of which, there's something you might not have realized yet. Have you ever noticed how we slowly start to shut up? At first we try to talk, explain, show what is hurting us. But the lack of response, the indifference, the silence of the other person, all of this teaches us that perhaps it is better to swallow everything alone. And when you realize it, you no longer complain. You no longer wait. You no longer dream about simple gestures of affection. You just follow. But inside she is tired, exhausted from trying to keep a relationship going that only exists when you insist. This is where this coldness that so many talk about is born, but no one sees that it is actually protection. It's what's left after you've given yourself completely, and there's no one left to take care of you. You stopped talking because you felt invisible. He stopped waiting because he already knew the answer. And even when your heart was still screaming for attention, you learned to silence it so as not to appear needy, overly sensitive, or dramatic. This coldness that they judge is their shield. It's not lack of love, it's self-defense. And only those who have loved beyond the limit understand the weight of needing to protect themselves from their own hope. You're not cold. You are someone who has already believed too much, has forgiven too much, has already started over when you shouldn't have, and even so, was treated as if you were replaceable. And when this happens again and again, the soul gets tired, the body feels, the mind screams, and we start to retreat, not out of pride, but out of necessity, because you realize that if you continue to donate without being seen, you will end up losing yourself completely, and you don't deserve that. You didn't come here to beg for love, affection, or attention. You came to be valued, to be treated with reciprocity, with care, with true presence. That's why, even in silence, you began to change. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're just reconnecting with yourself, You're just trying to recover what was slowly being ripped away. Your peace, your joy, your shine. And whoever calls you cold, perhaps never stopped to think that the love you gave was so pure that when you stopped receiving it, it left you empty. And now, all you want is emotional rest. You want someone to look at you and realize how much you've already fought inside. Someone who doesn't judge your silence, but who understands what it carries. Because every strong woman who seems distant carries a story of pain, frustrations, and battles, won alone. You are that woman. And this pain doesn't define you, but it has shaped a strength in you that few can understand. It's important for you to know this now. You are not difficult to love. The problem is that you tried to fit into places that didn't know the value of the love you gave. And that's not your fault. It never was. You were just trying to love someone you didn't yet know how to love back. If this excerpt spoke to you, if you felt like you were listening to your own story being told, leave it here in the comments. That's me. I just wanted to be valued. Let's create a welcoming space where other women can recognize themselves and realize that they are not alone. Because they aren't. And now that you understand that this coldness is, in fact, a cry for help in disguise, perhaps it's time to take a closer look at yourself. Because something very important still needs to be said. And it is at this point that something begins to awaken within you. After so much silence, so much swallowing your tears, and hiding the pain behind a forced smile, the moment comes when your soul asks for help. It's not a cry, it's not a scandal. It's a silent tiredness that speaks louder than any words. A tiredness of feeling invisible, of always taking the first step, of trying to maintain relationships that only exist because you insist. And the most painful thing is to realize that the more you donate, the more it seems like they expect it from you, as if it were an obligation to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders and still smile. But what about when you stop? When do you collect yourself, preserve yourself? When do you say enough? The reaction of others is almost always the same. You look strange. You are cold. What happened to you? Nobody asks what made you change. No one recognizes the pain that led you to this point. And you start to wonder, am I really difficult to deal with, or am I just exhausted from loving alone? This is a reflection that many women avoid making because facing the truth hurts. But it also frees. And the truth is, you were always love. It was always delivery, presence, care. The problem is that you got lost trying to keep the flame burning in someone who didn't care if you were burning inside. How many times have you suffocated your desires, your feelings, just to avoid causing conflict? How many times have you swallowed your pride to apologize for something that wasn't even your fault, just to keep the peace? This is not coldness, it is emotional exhaustion. It's the result of carrying a burden that wasn't yours alone. And when you step away, when you decide to prioritize yourself, it's as if the world around you goes into shock. People who were used to receiving everything from you start to get upset, not because they care about your pain, but because they have lost the comfort of surrender. And that reveals a lot, doesn't it? It reveals who was with you, because of what you offer, not because of who you are. And realizing this hurts, but it is necessary, because there comes a moment when self-love screams louder than need. And you finally understand that you can no longer continue giving everything to someone who offers you so little. You begin to rebuild yourself little by little, like someone picking up the pieces of their own heart after a storm. And in this process, you will realize that silence is also an answer, that distancing is also healing, that not responding, not insisting, not chasing, is not coldness. It is emotional maturity. You start to set limits, start saying no without guilt. And for the first time, you begin to ask yourself, what do I want for myself? Because yes, you matter too. Your well-being matters. Your heart matters. And perhaps this is the beginning of a new phase, a phase in which you learn to choose yourself, to prioritize, not accepting less than you deserve, understanding that the love that is worth it is not the one that exhausts you, but the one that strengthens you. And that presence without reciprocity is an absence in disguise. It is at this moment that many women discover a strength they didn't even know they had, because when we stop running after those who don't value us, we start moving towards those who really matter, ourselves. And this reconnection is so powerful that it begins to heal wounds you didn't even know were still open. It begins to bring back the shine in your eyes, the desire to truly smile, to breathe deeply, and feel peace in the silence. If at any point in your life you have ever felt like you were giving too much and receiving too little, comment here. I've given myself until there's nothing left of me, because you are not alone. And this exchange of experiences could be the beginning of a cure that many still don't know they need. And when you start to reconnect with who you really are, something very profound also starts to happen. You start to see more clearly everything you previously accepted in the name of love. Situations that seemed normal before now bother you. Words that you once swallowed in silence now echo powerfully within you. You start to really feel how much you've done nothing to try to keep people around who have never really been with you. And that hurts. It hurts because, for a long time, you believed that if you gave a little more, if you loved a little more, if you gave in one more time, maybe things would change. But now you understand. It's not about how much you give. It's about how much the other person is willing to value. And that's when the coldness that they accused you of so much starts to make sense to you. Because she wasn't born out of nowhere. It was built layer by layer, like an armor you created to protect yourself from everything that hurt you. It wasn't a shield you chose to use. It was what was left when your love became a source of contempt. This coldness is, in fact, the way you found to survive when you realized that no one would come to save you. And that doesn't make you less of a woman, less sensitive, or less worthy of love. It makes you human. It makes you someone who is tired of bleeding on the inside, trying to look good on the outside. You learned to be strong when all you wanted was to be held. He learned to smile when inside. He was falling apart. She got used to hearing that she was exaggerated, too emotional, too intense, when all she did was truly love. And because you loved like that, with so much dedication, you were also disappointed in the same proportion. Because love, when it is not reciprocated, becomes a burden. And no one can carry that much weight alone for that long. Only now, you are different. You are more aware, and perhaps for the first time in your life, you are learning to respect your own limits, saying enough not with anger but with dignity, leaving where they don't want you, not because you lost love, but because you found your self-love again. And this, as difficult as it may be at first, is the most important step towards healing. Because when you stop running after those who hurt you, you start walking towards your true peace, that peace that doesn't depend on anyone's validation. That peace that comes when you understand that you've already given too much and now it's time to receive, not from others but from yourself. And this is a process that no one teaches. We learn in pain. You learn when you no longer have tears to cry. Learn when the heart shuts up because it got tired of screaming. You learn when, in the silence of your soul, you hear for the first time your own voice saying, "You deserve better." And that's why, even though you're hurt, you move on. Not out of pride, but because you finally understood that staying in the same place is stopping you from flourishing. You're not wrong for wanting more. You are not being ungrateful by expecting reciprocity. You are not exaggerating because you want presence, affection, listening. You're just being fair with everything you've already offered. And if this bothers those who only knew how to receive, it's because your absence is teaching what your presence always disguised. That you were the strongest link in that relationship. If you're at that point right now, where you feel like you're changing inside but you still carry guilt for moving away, write here in the comments, "I'm learning to choose myself." Let's create this healing space together, where each woman who reads recognizes herself, and who knows, finds the courage to continue. Because there is something even stronger coming next. And when you finally start to choose yourself, even if timidly, the world around you starts to react. Not always in the way you would like. There are people who will walk away. There are people who will find it strange. And others will even criticize you. Because people got used to the version of you that said yes to everything, that canceled itself out to please, that swallowed crying to maintain harmony. When you start saying no, setting limits, protecting what you feel, many people won't know how to deal with it. But that's when you understand one of the greatest truths in your life. Those who really love you respect your change, respect your healing, respect your process. You no longer need to adapt to places that diminish you. Don't even try to prove yourself to someone who never saw how hard you tried. This version of you, firmer, more aware, more careful with your own emotions, is not coldness. It is evolution. It's maturity. It's self-compassion. It's the woman you are becoming after being broken so much. And maybe on the outside, it seems like you're tougher, more distant, more reserved. But inside, you are learning to breathe, to listen to yourself, to welcome yourself. And that is sacred. In this new phase, you begin to look back with a different perspective, and he understands that he often blamed himself for not being enough, when in fact it was too much for those who never knew how to recognize it. You remember all the times you tried to fit in, change your ways, dim your own light, just to fit into small hearts. But now you know, true love doesn't require you to diminish yourself. It enlarges, it adds up, it embraces who you are without trying to mold you into something easier to control. And when you realize this, you begin to free yourself from the need to please. You begin to forgive yourself for the times you betrayed yourself trying to be accepted. Start rescuing that woman you were before you were hurt so much. The one who dreamed big, who smiled lightly, who believed in love as an exchange and not as a sacrifice. Because deep down, it's still there, waiting to be remembered, waiting for you to reach out to yourself and say, "That's enough. Now it's up to me." And this decision to prioritize yourself is not selfish. It's emotional survival. How many times have you left your own feelings aside to avoid seeming complicated? How many times have you preferred silence so as not to scare others with your intensity? You're not too much. You were just misunderstood. And now he is learning to understand himself. You are learning that being sensitive is not weakness, it is strength. That being intense is not a defect, it is essence. That being careful is not lack, it is an expression of love. Little by little, you will also stop blaming yourself for moving away from people who weren't good for you. You will understand that silence is often a choice of peace, not indifference. That keeping your distance is an act of respect for yourself. And that setting limits is the most honest way to continue loving without getting hurt. That's why, at this moment, it's so important that you don't give up on yourself. Even if outside voices try to make you go back to who you are no longer. Even if some people say that you have changed. Yes, you have changed. And still good. Because growing up hurts. But staying where they hurt you hurts much more. If you are going through this process right now, if you are facing dirty looks, criticism, separation, just because you decided to take care of your emotional health, share it here in the comments. I'm being true to myself, even if it hurts. Your story can give strength to other women who are still afraid to choose themselves. And in the next section, we will talk about what begins to blossom within you when, finally, this decision to prioritize yourself becomes your new path. And it is exactly on this new path that something subtle but profound begins to sprout within you. After so long being ripped away from herself, something begins to restore itself. At first it's almost imperceptible. A small desire to breathe more easily, to wake up and not feel that weight in your chest, to look in the mirror and see more than just tiredness or pain. It's as if your soul begins to regain the shine that has been dimmed for so long. And this, even if it is still fragile, is real. Because when you decide to be true to yourself, even if it hurts, something inside you blooms. It's not fast, it's not magic, but it's true. You begin to realize that you no longer need to chase attention, validation, love at any cost. Because now you understand that the most important love is what you offer yourself. You start to listen to yourself more, to respect yourself more. You begin to realize that you can say no without feeling guilty, that you can walk away without having to explain yourself. Who can choose herself without fear of appearing selfish? And this awareness changes everything. It gives you back the power that, for a long time, you gave into the hands of people who didn't know how to take care of it. And in this healing process, you will find small joys where before there was only pain. A song that makes you smile. A moment of silence that no longer scares. Time alone that no longer feels like abandonment, but freedom. You begin to discover that your company is valuable, that your peace is worth more than any relationship that steals your shine, and that being with someone only makes sense when they add to you, not lessen you. Of course, there are days when the past still hurts. There are memories that tighten the chest, doubts that visit the mind, and that's okay. No one heals overnight. The woman you are becoming is the result of everything you endured, overcame, and chose to leave behind. So be patient with the process. Have compassion for yourself. Look fondly at all the versions you were, even those you no longer recognize today, because each one of them brought you here. Every pain, every disappointment, every tear was part of the path that woke you up to this new phase of your life. You don't need to prove yourself anymore. You don't need to beg for love, attention, or presence. What you need now is to welcome yourself. It's building a place within yourself where you feel safe, seen, respected, and believe me, this starts when you stop trying to understand why you haven't been enough for others and start understanding how much you deserve to be enough for yourself. You're not cold. You are in the healing process. You are rebuilding your identity. You are creating a new way of loving, more conscious, healthier, more whole. And from that point on, everything that comes to you needs to be aligned with this new self-love that is being born. You don't accept crumbs anymore. He is no longer satisfied with more or less. Now either it's whole or it's nothing, because you've already fragmented yourself too much trying to maintain relationships that didn't take you anywhere. Now you want depth, want truth. You want someone to meet you where you are without wanting to change your essence. And above all, he wants peace. You want that kind of love that starts with you, overflows with you, but never exhausts you. If at this moment you feel like something is being reborn inside, even if it's small, even if you're still afraid, share it here in the comments. I'm blossoming inside. His process may seem lonely, but it inspires, it transforms, and what comes next is even stronger, because when you start to blossom, something new also starts to happen around you, and it is precisely when you begin to blossom inside that the world around you begins to transform. It may even seem like nothing has changed externally, that the same people are still around, that the same scenarios are still repeating themselves, but something essential has changed. The way you see yourself, how you listen, how you position yourself. Before, you asked for love. Today, you offer yourself respect. Before, you bent over backwards to fit into other people's worlds. Now, you learn to stand tall, firm, even if silent. And this new posture, this energy that emanates from within you, changes everything. Because when we change from the inside, even what comes from the outside starts to have another impact. You stop accepting conversations that hurt you. Stop insisting on loose ties. Stop waiting for what has already shown you will never come. Not because you've become a cold or insensitive person, but because now you know exactly what you deserve. And what you deserve has never been little. It just took you a while to see that what makes you suffer repeatedly isn't love. It's attachment, it's habit, it's fear of being alone. But when you start to blossom, even loneliness takes on another meaning. It stops being absence and becomes space. Space to listen to yourself, to take care of yourself, to rediscover yourself. And in this rediscovery, you find versions of yourself that were hidden behind the pain. Discover the woman who knows how to protect herself without closing herself off, who knows how to love without losing herself, who knows how to welcome others without abandoning herself. This woman has always existed in there, but I needed time. I needed you to stop running after those who hurt you, to finally walk alongside those who respect you, even if that someone is yourself for now. And do you know the most beautiful thing? It's just that when you change your vibration, you change the type of connection you attract. The relationships that used to hurt you begin to fall apart naturally, not because you expel them, but because there is no more space in you for that which has no depth. And in place of what leaves, something new begins to arrive. It may be slow, it may come in unexpected ways, but it begins. People who look at you with truth. Situations that don't cost you but that add up. Moments of peace that previously seemed distant have now become part of your emotional routine. This flourishing is not about becoming someone perfect or unattainable. It's about becoming someone whole, and whoever is whole attracts what is true. Because the love that comes after healing is not the same as the love you accepted in need. He is light, he is calm, he is safe, and most importantly, it doesn't require you to hurt yourself to maintain it. You will realize that true love is not scared by your intensity, does not judge your silence, does not try to turn off your light. He sees you, and that already changes everything. And when this change starts to happen, it's impossible not to notice. People will start to look at you differently. Some will come closer, wanting to understand what made you so strong. Others will turn away because they can't handle their new light. But none of these reactions matter as much as how you feel when you lie down at night and realize, today, you were true to yourself. Today, you didn't betray yourself. Today, you chose yourself. Again. And in this new cycle, what matters most is not who stays or who goes. It's what you build within yourself. It is your peace being restored. It's your self-esteem coming back. It's your ability to dream again. Not about someone who will save you, but about the incredible woman you are becoming. And this woman, most certainly, no longer accepts being just an option in anyone's life. If you have already started to feel this internal change, if you already realize that some things no longer fit you, comment here. I no longer fit in where I am not valued. Your strength is inspiring more women than you realize. And in the next section, we'll talk about what happens when you finally understand that your value doesn't depend on anyone else's acceptance. And it's when you finally understand that your worth doesn't depend on anyone else's acceptance that true emotional freedom begins. Because for a long time you measured your value based on the eyes of others. If they paid attention to you, you felt seen. If they showed affection, you felt important. If they chose you, you believed you were enough. But all it took was silence, neglect, or separation from someone you loved for your entire internal world to collapse. It was as if his identity was tied to the presence and recognition of the other. And this, however subtle it may be, is an emotional prison that suffocates, consumes, and makes you hostage to external validation. But now you are starting to see more clearly. You understand that your value is absolute and does not depend on the way they treat you. You are worth it because you exist, because you feel, because you love, because you have a light that doesn't need to be approved by anyone to continue shining. And this realization is liberating, because when you stop trying to fit in where you no longer fit, you start to occupy the place that has always been yours, that of a whole woman, aware of what she deserves, willing not to diminish herself for any type of shallow affection. The big turning point happens there, when you no longer despair over rejection, when you no longer beg for presence, when you don't explain yourself excessively just to be understood. You simply understand. Whoever wants to stay, stays. Whoever respects, listens. Whoever truly loves, cares. And if it's not like that, you don't insist anymore. Not because you lost the ability to love, but because you now know what hurts you, and she is determined not to be hurt by anyone again. This awareness changes the way you relate to everything around you, even with yourself. You start to treat yourself more kindly, to respect your own limits, honoring your emotions without guilt. And the most beautiful thing, you begin to realize that you are becoming exactly the woman you once wanted to be. Not perfect, but real. Not untouchable, but strong. Not cold, but lucid. And lucidity allows you to see how unfair you were to yourself for so long, how much you demanded, pressured, criticized yourself, when, in reality, you just needed support. You have always been enough. She was just surrounded by people who didn't know how to recognize her value. And that's why you tried to change, tried to fit in, tried to please. But now, you don't need that anymore. You no longer live to please those who don't see the greatness of what you offer. And the more you become stronger, the more you start to choose who to share your energy with. You no longer give your heart to those who don't know how to care. No longer waste words on those who don't want to listen. You no longer try so hard to maintain what is clearly not good for you. And that's not pride. It's respect. It's emotional maturity. It's self-love in action. Your energy is now selective. You learned that not everyone deserves access to your vulnerability, your presence, your surrender. Because being a woman who feels deeply, who loves intensely, who gives herself body and soul is beautiful, but only when this is welcomed with the same care. Otherwise, it becomes self-abandonment. And this is a place where you decided not to return. If you have already realized that you no longer need the approval of others to feel enough, that you now look in the mirror and begin to see a stronger, more confident, and more at peace woman, comment here. Today, I recognize my value. Let's continue this journey together, because in the next section you will discover what happens when this new version of you starts to attract exactly what you always deserved, but never imagined actually existed. And when you begin to recognize your true value, something surprising happens. Your choices change. What once caught your attention no longer attracts you. The crumbs that once seemed enough now bother you deeply. The love that you once accepted, even without reciprocity, now seems too small for the size of the woman you have become. Because that's what self-love does to us. It broadens our vision, refines our sensitivity, and removes what is not aligned with our new vibration. And little by little you realize that you are beginning to attract exactly what you always deserved, but never believed possible to receive. It's not about magic or luck. It is the result of an internal repositioning. Before, you accepted little because you thought it was the most you could have. Today, you only accept what comes with truth, with respect, with sincere delivery. Because now you are no longer willing to mold yourself to fit. You are willing to wait for what is whole. That kind of connection where you don't need to hide or diminish yourself or explain yourself all the time. Where you are seen without having to shout. Where its intensity does not scare but enchants. Where your strength does not bother, but inspires. And that's why, without even realizing it, you start to say no more firmly. Not for superficial relationships. Not for empty talk. Not for promises that are never fulfilled. No to everything that made you feel small. And every no you say to what hurts you is a yes you say to yourself. A yes to your peace, to your evolution, to your healing. Because you understand that it's not worth wasting yourself trying to be enough for someone who never had the emotional maturity to receive you. The woman you are now is no longer willing to confuse presence with momentary attention. You don't want someone who only shows up when it suits them. You want constancy, real presence, true dialogue. You want to be chosen with clarity, with intention, with soul. And do you know why? Because you learned to choose yourself that way, with presence, with intention, with soul. And in this new phase, even the way you communicate changes. You don't explain yourself so much anymore. He no longer tries to convince anyone to stay. It no longer begs for attention. You simply observe, sit down, understand, because whoever is aligned with the woman you have become approaches you lightly. It doesn't pressure you. It doesn't judge you. It doesn't manipulate you. Just enough. And it stays. Because he recognizes in you a light that only those who have gone through a lot of darkness can carry with so much truth. You begin to see the difference between those who are present by habit and those who are present by choice. And as a result, it becomes increasingly selective. Not out of arrogance, but because your heart has already taken too much to remain open to anyone. Now, whoever wants to stay needs to show it with actions. It needs to add up, need to take care. It needs to be. And even if you're still in this process, even if on some days insecurity knocks on the door, even if the past tries to pull you back, you know you're not the same anymore. Because today, you understand that true love starts with you. And everything that comes after that needs to at least keep you at peace. Otherwise, it won't work. If you are starting to feel this movement within you, this desire for truer bonds, for deeper connections, for relationships that respect you as you are, comment here. Now I only stay where there is truth. Let's go together until the end of this journey, because in the next section, you will understand why walking away from those who don't value you was the greatest act of love you've ever had for yourself. And when you walk away from those who don't value you, something extraordinary happens. For the first time in a long time, you feel the weight lifting. Breathing becomes lighter, the mind clearer, the heart less pressured. Because what seemed like love was actually just the fear of being alone. What seemed like company was just a presence that slowly drained you. And what seemed necessary was just a reflection of her need to be seen, heard, welcomed. But now, by walking away, you are making space, a sacred space, a space that was being occupied by those who didn't offer you even half of what you always gave. This separation is not coldness, it is healing. It's emotional maturity. It's finally understanding that insisting on those who don't recognize your value is the most painful way of abandoning yourself. And you decided not to abandon yourself anymore. You chose to stay by your side, even when it meant letting go of old relationships. Because deep down you know, the life that awaits you on the other side of detachment is infinitely lighter, healthier, and more true. And it all starts with that choice. The choice to leave the cycle of giving without return, giving without limit, waiting that is never fulfilled. You weren't selfish for walking away. You were brave. She was strong enough to tell herself, enough, I deserve more. She was mature enough to see that continuing to insist would mean continuing to get sick. And no one else will live inside you. No one else will define their worth based on their own inability to love. Now it is you who sets the pace, who chooses the bonds, who decides what remains and what needs to go. And maybe today, when you look back, you even miss some people, but he no longer misses the pain, that tightness in your chest, that anxiety disguised as love, that feeling of never being enough, because now you know that it was always too much for those who were unprepared. And so, it is ready for a new stage, a phase where you no longer accept carrying an entire relationship alone, where you no longer justify absence with infinite understanding, where you don't diminish yourself to hold anyone close. You are freeing yourself. It is being reborn. You are understanding that your heart is not a place for lukewarm love, for empty presences, for words that never become actions. Now everything that comes into your life needs to be up to your delivery, of your truth, of your light, and everything that doesn't keep up with this new rhythm simply doesn't fit anymore. If you've come this far and felt that this video spoke directly to your soul, take advantage and subscribe to the channel now. Here you will find strength, clarity, and direction to remain firm in this process of healing and rebirth. And comment below, so I know you're with me on this journey. I walked away and finally found peace. Leave this on record, because this sentence marks the beginning of your new story. And in the next video, you will discover something that has the power to completely transform the way you position yourself in the world. The power of saying no without guilt. An essential step to keeping your inner peace intact and protecting everything you are building within yourself. It's time to strengthen your limits with lightness, firmness, and self-love. This key will open doors you never knew existed. You will be surprised.